Hello and welcome to Jessica Adanich, who's joining me today from DesignPod. Welcome to the Master Maker podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So let's get right into it. I know that our listeners are going to want to hear a lot about what you have to offer as far as branding advice. It's one of the most important things that a business can take into account. You run a company called DesignPod that works with clients to develop successful brand identity. How important is developing a cohesive brand to a small business?
I mean, obviously, I'm biased, but a cohesive brand is honestly everything. It's not just your logo, it's how people really feel about how they interact with your business. Your business builds trust and recognition. So when your visuals, tone, experience are consistent, customers start to remember you and rely on you. A lot of people think that brand is just your logo, but it's really everything that makes up your aesthetics of your company. So it's the story, it's the emotion, it's the promise behind that logo, that symbol. If you think of major iconic brands, when you see it, there's certain emotions that you connect or reference with that brand, whether it's trust or great quality, quality products, all of those things. So I think it's really about people understanding that they need to think about their brand being the personality of their business and not just the logo.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And I know exactly what you mean. There's certain logos and things that you see, they're just so iconic, you know. It makes you feel a certain way, like when you feel when you shop there or when you feel when you go there.
Yeah.
So what I can get what you're saying, and for somebody just starting out, everything can seem really daunting. What advice would you give to a small business that's just starting out and getting their footing and like deciding on a name and a feel for their business?
Oh, I think that is one of the most exciting times in a business, but as someone who, and I'll share the story because as a branding agency, I think it's important to also sometimes share our flaws. And when I was trying to decide on a name, I originally had picked Purple Cuttlefish Creative Agency, which
Wow.
is a mouthful
Yes.
name. But I love cuttlefish, and I really wanted that to be my logo and the brand. But when I had designed the logo and I had a website, a URL, everything, business cards, my first event that I went to, I spent more time explaining to people what a cuttlefish was than what I was doing for a living.
So you realize it's not working.
No,
Yeah.
not working at all. Because I was so close to my own business, I overthought everything. And often we can do that as business owners, especially when you're working on the business and in the business. So I recommend to new entrepreneurs to honestly, especially with AI now, or even just the internet, Googling kind of like a brand discovery questionnaire where it can give you questions that you can answer about your own business. If you can write down on paper, really what your mission statement is, your core values, your favorite colors, fonts, things that you're drawn to, even making a vision board, as silly as that sounds. Because a lot of times we might like certain aesthetics or things that we like. I like cuttlefish,
Mhm.
but that wasn't going to work with my customer target market. So I think it really is important to understand your business, put that down in writing, and it'll help you figure out what to do first and what makes sense. I often recommend to people to take post-its. I love post-its. I like bright color post-its, obviously, but write down everything that you need to do for branding and just stick it on a wall. And then you can move them around and make lists of priority because it can be very overwhelming and daunting for
Right.
sure.
Absolutely. That's a good lesson to learn is that what you are passionate about isn't necessarily what your customer is going to be passionate about. Like
Yeah.
you loving cuttlefish. You have to
Yes.
remember that people are passionate about different things.
Oh, yes. And I would also recommend that when looking for a name, because I have a new client that we're actually going through this process right now, crossing your potential name with URL options. It's that string of words or phrases.com that you type into a web browser. And I know that's so silly to kind of explain that, but some people don't. If you don't know the terminology, it's good to explain it. That to look up to see if your name is available.
Right.
I've seen too many time companies pick a name and then the URL isn't available and they have to pick some weird spelling of a URL, which really is a brand disconnect because people are going to be typing in your company name and finding potentially some other company versus what you're doing because that URL wasn't available. So it really is, and also seeing if there's any other companies out there already in your sector that have that name because you're going to be competing against it. So there's a lot of different variables, but sooner or later you will narrow it down to something that resonates with you and that you love.
Right. So settling on name isn't just picking a name and saying, okay, that's my name, I'm going to town. You have to check
Correct.
a lot of things before you do that.
Yeah. Just like
Right.
picking if you're gonna purchase a 1-800 number, like a business number,
Mhm.
always Google that to see who owned it before and where it went.
Right, right. We always tell people to look at USPTO and see if that anybody has anything registered.
Yes.
That you can do a free search on their website, uspto.gov, and see if somebody's got a trademark on the name that you want already, because that's going to cause you problems down the road when they find you.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes. It's very good to do your due diligence and research. A lot of people skip that in the beginning because it is overwhelming or it's a lot of work. But if you think about it as the foundation and an investment in your company, then you're not going to be paying 3, 5 times more money or time in the future to correct things.
right. That makes a lot of sense. So how would you define branding versus just having a logo or a product?
Your brand is visually everything that makes up how your company looks and how people respond to it. So your logo is just that, like the face, like that one image, but your brand are the colors, fonts, copy, how you write email blasts or social media posts. Is it serious? Is it educational? Is it funny? Stock photography? Is it natural? Is it boutique? All of those visuals and making sure that they're consistent is what makes your brand. If you watch TV, which a lot of people do, or even the internet, YouTube, you might see consistent commercials and you're like, oh, why have I seen this Snuggie commercial for the 10th time? It's
Right,
that repetitive messaging that's important. And I believe statistically right now they're saying that a message has to be hit home like 13 times for a consumer to really have it start to sink in. And that's why you've seen a Snuggie commercial or a Chia Pet commercial for the 13th time, and you're like, maybe I will buy that Bob Ross Chia Pet. Like, you
right,
don't
right.
need it, but it's just you've seen it so many times. And that's just like Apple or Under Armour, Coca-Cola, that consistency across all of those channels, it makes you remember the brand. And when you see certain colors or visuals, you automatically know that it's that brand, and that's incredibly important.
Excellent. People's attention spans now are so short. I
We're
mean,
all goldfish.
you got to get their attention in some way, shape, or form. You have to find your way above the whole din of everybody else doing the same thing and selling the same type of product. There's not a lot of new ideas in this space. It's only the new brands and the new way to sell it and present it. There's only so many ways to make soap. There's only so many ways to make lotions. But then if you tie in excellent packaging and colors and storytelling, it makes a difference. It gets you above that
It
noise.
really does. And there's a great book that I recommend called Purple Cow by Seth Godin, and it speaks to that. The beginning of the book opens up explaining if you live in the city and you're driving across country and you see cows for the first time, you're just mystified. You think that they're absolutely amazing, but then after driving for hours, you're like, oh, more cows, more cows. But then you see a purple cow.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely magnificent, right? It's
Right.
standing out from everyone else. And Seth really uses that as an analogy of everyone in business that you're in this field of other cows, that's your competition. What makes you a purple cow? So I talk to clients that might be doing something that has been done over and over again, but what is your purple cow factor? What's your superpower? What makes you different? Whether it's your process, your ingredients, your personality, all of that, bringing that to the forefront makes you you and your brand different.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to understand who you are and who you're selling to versus trying to sell to everybody. Everybody uses soap.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to use your soap. So it's
Right.
important to understand who that target audience is and own it. Like own your purple cow. You know what I mean? Like I tell people all the time that I love the ocean and obviously cuttlefish and whales and sharks. I own that. Like I know that that's my thing, and I think that's really important. And people really also are attracted to authenticity, especially in a world now that we are so inundated with information and advertising that they want brands to be transparent and authentic.
Right. Right. Makes a lot of sense. And that leads into my next question, actually. And how much does storytelling fit into a company's brand identity?
I feel like it's everything.
Okay.
I think that it's a way for the consumer to connect to you. A study was done in Forbes probably a few years ago now, where they found that in the past, maybe consumers would follow brands, but now they're actually following CEOs and founders of brands and companies because they really want to know that story, that founding story, what makes the brand what it is, their mission, why they're doing what they're doing. People work really hard for their income these days. And so if they're going to buy a product or a service, they want to make sure that it's supporting what they support. I know a lot of brands might donate to a certain cause or they're doing a certain mission, and people really more than ever are supporting brands that align with their personal views and values. So having that storytelling is crucial. And it adds back to that purple cow factor, being able to share that. People want to resonate with that. They want to see the human behind the company and the products.
Right, right. That makes sense. They want to make sure that who they're supporting is aligns with who they are as well. Yeah.
Yes, and it gives them a comfort and a happiness, when they're using that soap or lotion and they put it on in the morning or they're in the shower, they're like, oh, maybe a portion of these proceeds went to ocean conservation, or, this person made it in their family farm in Alaska. It makes them feel a happiness. And there's so much stress in the world today that if soap can make you happy and the fact that you've paid for an artisan to make it and you have that extra connection to them and you might not even know them, I think that that's a magical thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we know that statistically, like on social media, let's say that negative posts get more attention than positive posts. But honestly feel like that's flipping a little bit because there's so much negativity on social media. When I find myself scrolling, if there's something positive or cute or funny, or I stop and I ignore the rest of it. I feel like that people are getting sick of the negativity. Like, inspire me, make me
Yeah.
laugh, make me feel something other than doom, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah. I will stop. I will scroll through negative stuff, but I will stop for the puppy and the baby
me
duck
too.
friends.
Absolutely. And for me, it sounds like we're the same kind of person. I am all about the water. I'm all about the sailing, the scuba diving, anything.
Yes.
Like my Instagram feed is all ocean, you know,
Yeah.
everything. Love it.
Love that.
Yes. So, all right. Most small businesses are on a very tight budget, especially when they are first starting out. What advice would you give businesses with budgets on creating a brand? And what are the most important things to put that money into and maintain?
Yes. So the first thing I will say is hopefully every business owner should do in the beginning in making a business plan, making a marketing strategy and a branding plan. I'm a big component, maybe it's the OCD type A personality in me, but writing out and making a plan to understand what you need to do and how to do it properly and what can you do internally and what can you outsource. The biggest problem that I see a lot of new brands starting, they're using AI to create their logo, which is fine. But the problem comes in that AI doesn't output a high resolution file where you could use it for a vehicle wrap or a large print. So I think not that you need to become a graphic designer branding expert, but just like a business owner should understand to a certain extent their accounting and their books, you should know enough to know what needs to be done properly and what can you do internally and what can you outsource and what needs to be done in the beginning and what maybe can wait till later. And that really comes into planning, just like anything else. If you're going to make a soap, you obviously make a plan for ingredients and your process. So I would say do the same thing with branding and understand what is your budget, what can you put into it, and how to make those dollars work in a timeline. Obviously, a perfect world, we would all want to be able to do everything at once, and that's not the reality of it. So, baby stepping it. You don't have to have everything done at once. You don't have to have a full-blown working website, 20 pages right out the gate. Even if you just get a website with a landing page and then grow it as you go, that's completely fine and doable.
What is like one thing you would say if somebody's just starting out and they've got their vision, they kind of know the story they want to tell and the colors and things and the feel of it. What would you say is one thing they should definitely outsource in right when they're starting out?
I would say a logo
Okay.
because, and there's a lot of different options. You can certainly go on Fiverr. That's a website where you can hire inexpensive graphic designers to give you the proper logo file. And the reason I say outsource it is because Canva ChatGPT, they're great resources, but what you're getting is a low resolution file, which means that it's used for online digital purposes. But for the long term, if you want to get t-shirts or packaging done, a printer or graphic designer is going to say, can I have your vector file or high resolution file of your logo? And
Right.
you're going to be like, I don't have it. And then you're going to have to pay someone to do it or redo it. Also, the other side of that is often I see business owners, they rush to get a logo done and they don't really love it. I tell people you should love your logo, like you should want to get it tattooed on you. I know that sounds crazy, but you should really love it because it's going to be everywhere. It's the face of your company. And if you don't love it down the road, 3, 5 years, when you're like, well, maybe we don't really love it or it's not in line with what I was envisioning, you're going to have to redo business cards, packaging, and now you've already built a customer base and you could do a refresh or kind of alter the logo where people still understand it's your brand. Otherwise, you're possibly looking at people seeing you as a whole new brand and there's a disconnect.
Right.
Years ago, the Gap wanted to redo their logo and like the world broke. They're like, don't do it. There's just sometimes you just don't. I mean, Crackle Barrel, they recently went through
Yeah,
that.
they did.
A,
They did.
a lot of different brands have tried to do that over the years, and you can do tweaks to things over time. But if you have a logo that's a flamingo and then you want to go to a platypus, people are going to think you're a totally different brand. So I would say invest in a vector logo that you like because you're going to thank yourself down the road.
Right, right. It's sort of like a new wedding dress or a house or some big purchase that you make. You just know when you know, you know. You walk into that house and you've seen it 50 houses and you just have that feeling. You're like, that's it. And you got to feel that way about your logo. You got to feel like that's my logo,
Yes.
and maybe people can do a hybrid, like use Canva or AI to give them an idea to send to somebody who's a
Yes.
professional and say, I'm thinking along this lines, because then the professional is going to take it and elevate it that much more, and then, like you said, give you the file that
Correct.
you need.
Yeah, and that has been a great tool. AI is not going anywhere, and I think people should utilize it responsibly.
Yes.
But for people that aren't creative in the design sense, being able to use tools like Canva or AI to say, this is what I'm seeing in my head, people can articulate some things, but sometimes creativity and visually that's hard to put into words. So yes, that's a great process to use as well.
Right. No, it's not great, but that the person that you're talking to can take it to that level.
Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
here's this doodle on a napkin. Do
Right. Exactly. It's AI, but yeah, it's sort of doodle, but yes,
digital doodle. Yeah.
exactly. Can you share some tips for taking your products and business to social media and how to keep your message consistent and in line with your brand identity?
Yes. When it comes to social media, I recommend to people that consistency is key, again, just like anything else, and picking the platform that's best for your target audience.
Okay.
When people often start doing social media, they think that they have to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, all the things. It's just like any other habit. If you're going to start going to the gym, you don't go 5 days a week. You work it into your routine and your habits. I think starting off with one platform that's going to reach your audience best and making sure that you can do it 2 times a week or once a month. And then as that starts to become a habit, then maybe increase and do another platform or start a blog, an email blast. Because if you try to do everything at once, you're going to fail. I'm just going to be honest. We all do that. We put too much stuff on our plate. It's like January 1st comes, New Year. We're like, we're going to do all the things, but don't set yourself up for failure. Set yourself up for success with small steps and be consistent. Even if you're putting out posts where you feel like they might all look too similar, that means that you're probably on track because if you think about your own browsing on social media, that's how you're understanding that that's the same company. A lot of times people think that their brand is special, and it is, but put yourself in the consumer seat and what you do on a Friday night mindlessly on the commercials while you're watching Hell's Kitchen or something. That's what
Right.
I do. I'm explaining my life. I'm a goldfish, right? So unless things are visually matching, how do I know that it's the same brand? So consistency, start small, reachable goals, and then grow from there.
Do small companies really have to share a little bit of themselves now to get attention? Not just the static posts like, here's my product, isn't it beautiful, buy it. Here's my product, isn't it beautiful, buy it. Do they have to like get a little more real with the customers now?
I would say yes. They say statistically right now that social media posts that tend to do better are ones that are showing the owner or the maker or behind the scenes in some way. We're so used to seeing static product images. And static product images, there's a time and place for them and they're beautiful.
Right,
But especially now that the world knows Photoshop, I mean, an average person who doesn't know how to use Photoshop can look at an image and be like, oh, that's AI or that's Photoshop. So I
right,
think it's even more important to, even though it might be awkward, get yourself in front of the camera. Or if you don't want to get in front of the camera, you can always record your process and do a voiceover. There's ways
right,
that you can make it your own where you don't have to feel awkward or insecure. And people like it when you fumble. You know, they
right.
might like it when you goof up. I mix words up all the time, and that just shows that you're human and people like that connection. But I do think it's important to show the real side of a brand versus just beautiful photos. Beautiful photos are important though for your website.
So, what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you see small brands make on social media?
Not posting consistently. Their handles across different platforms are all different. And that's okay if you can't find the same one. You know, if your company name is Soap and Fun, but you can't, that's already taken. Maybe it's Soap and Fun US, Soap and Fun, I live in Florida, FL.
Mhm,
But making sure that those handles are the same or as close as they can be across all platforms. So when someone's looking for you, again, consistency is key.
mhm.
And then biting off more than they can chew. They get into, trying to post a bunch and then they go stagnant or they just don't do anything. I
Right.
think that it's important to just make sure that what you set up to do that you can do. And a lot of times companies, and I'm not a digital agency, so a lot of digital agencies are going to say something different, but they invest in doing advertising. I think when you're a small business, there's probably other creative marketing endeavors that you could invest your dollars in instead of paid advertising. Paid advertising right now, it's a lot to get above the noise and above those other posts. You're looking at probably a few $1,000s a month to really play in that bucket. Whereas if you're a small business starting out, probably doing a farmer's market and getting your branding on point and maybe flyers and putting them up at coffee shops, like doing a local mailing, those types of things I think would be a better investment financially for your budget if it's small versus doing paid advertising. Because it also takes a very long time, 6 to 9 months to see a return on any sort of keywords, Google AdWords, social media. But that's just my personal opinion because I think about if you're a small business owner working with a small budget, how can I maximize those dollars and do what's best for my brand versus what everybody else is doing, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And it's hard. It's one of those things that small business has to decide. It's like, how much money can I spend on marketing? But like you said, there are creative ways to get started. And please, 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 everybody out there listening, create a database of your customers and people, or registered users on your site. E-news is just such a good tool. If you send out a newsletter, you get a lot of hits on newsletters. So please collect those names when you can.
Yeah, I use the analogy that your email marketing list is those are those people that showed up to the concert because they want to see you play
Yes.
versus the people that are passing you by that didn't really come to see you play.
Right. Absolutely. So, as a business grows over time, how important is it to evolve and update your brand and story?
I think it's understanding your foundation and your mission and your core values. That's something that in the branding initially as a company, a lot of people again overlook writing out what their mission statement is, what their core values are, but having those for a company allow you it's your roadmap, it's so when you are maybe posed with something culturally or an email from a customer or social media comment that you understand how to respond or how you want to respond. The great thing about America is that we have the right to run our companies however we want within reason, but knowing what your true north compass is. And over time, by having your mission statement, your core values, you can use that to say, should we update our logo? Or no, is this really fine? Do we need a refresh? Do we need to change things? I recommend companies always having a brand style guide. And that is where it's listing everything aesthetically and visually, verbally about your brand. That over time is a working document where you update it. You can add new logos to it. You can say we changed this, and you certainly can change over time. But if you understand who, what you are, and who you're selling to as a business, that's going to be your compass.
Right.
And that will tell you if and when you should update things.
Right. Yeah, and you have to feel it just like the logo. You have to feel everything. You have to feel like this is my company. I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about my products. And if you're not feeling it, there's something wrong.
Yeah, and that is, I think, a big thing as business owners that we often don't talk enough about are the struggles.
Mhm.
And I don't think we celebrate the wins enough. As small as it could be, a win is a win, and we should celebrate those. But as a business owner, we get tied up in a lot of crap often, and we compare ourselves to others. So and so's doing this, or I saw this on social media. Social media is catered content. And so to compare yourself of the best or what somebody's putting out on social, you don't know what they're struggling with or what their business problems are. You need to compare yourself to you and your goals and your wants and where you want to go. And we do that naturally as individuals, as human beings in our everyday lives, we do that. So I think as business owners, it's even worse when we're trying to increase sales and get more of the market out there and get our brand out there that we compare ourselves to others when really it's easier said than done.
Absolutely. Which that does segue into my last set of questions for you. So we mentioned that, cash is kind of tight for businesses starting out, but also time management. A lot of these businesses are started by one person, sometimes two. They have to do everything. They have to make the products. They have to come up with the entire brand identity. They have to sell the products. They have to label the products. They have to clean the dishes. They have to do
Take out the
everything.
trash.
Right,
Yeah.
do the accounting, and usually take care of children or pets or elderly parents or something on top of it. So, what advice do you have for making time for your brand identity? What advice do you give them for making time and making it maybe a little bit more fun?
Yes,
Hmm.
I would say schedule. There's a great book called Buy Back Your Time. And as you grow as a business owner, the book is great because it really talks about in the beginning, you're wearing all of these hats. And you have to, right? But as you grow in business, what can you start delegating and putting off your plate? But one portion of the book talks about really scheduling and understanding what you do in your day to day. And maybe not every day is going to be as easy to say, okay, from 9 to 11 on Tuesdays, that's my brand time. That's when I'm really going to focus on XYZ. But it really truly is important. And I try to do this as much as possible in my schedule of, okay, these are the days that I really am going to schedule things because when you're your own boss, you have to be strict. And
Yes.
I think making a list and scheduling time for it is important and asking for help. There's a lot of really great resources out there where you can make it fun. I think that what I do for a living is fun. Obviously, I'm biased, but design and marketing should be fun. It should be exciting. It should not be stressful. And if you're stressed, then there's plenty of free resources or companies that offer free consultations. And then on top of that, definitely making time for yourself. I know that wasn't part of your question, but as a business owner, our mental health and our sanity is incredibly important. And
Yes.
taking a break, getting out in nature, I try to do every morning walks, and that just helps me clear my brain. Or
Yes.
even in the shower, there's a lot of studies where connecting with nature or water can help us clear our mind and the stress and think more clearly. So if you've been working on your brand and you're like, oh, I just can't get this, take a break. It's your
Right.
brain telling you, take a break, you'll figure it out and don't force it.
Like anything that if you're beating your head against a wall, even if it's like your
Yes.
taxes, your accounting, you just had a volcano, in your soap pot or anything like that, it always is good to take a break. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's reaching out to people who are in their soap shops who maybe feel isolated. And it's letting them know that there's a lot of other people out there with the same struggles and the same things, and they're dealing with these
Yes.
things.
I
So
read a post on Facebook the other day and it said something about networking and how networking is so amazing that who could think that you could meet a few new people and it could so drastically amazingly change your life.
yes.
And I think that that's the amazing thing about the guild and being able to connect with others, that you could find a mentor. And a mentor doesn't have to be someone older than you. It could be someone same age, younger, just different experiences, mindset that can help you bounce ideas off of each other. Because as business owners, we really need to come together more than separate. And instead of seeing ourselves as competition, how can we work together? How can we uplift each other? Because all tides rise, all ships. And we are really much more alike. And if we can come together, we can overcome our struggles better,
I agree
faster.
completely. Especially in a time where, there's so much division. The nice thing about the handcrafted soap and cosmetic industry is that we all love these products. Everyone's making these products and selling these products, and that's what brings us all together. And the businesses like yours that helps these businesses. So we revel in that fact, and we revel in being able to be a center of communication for everybody. Thank you so much for being on. I learned a lot myself about branding, and I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast.